In this video, we're going to talk about roots. So before you start the lesson, just make sure you're comfortable with basic multiplication. There's not a lot of previous knowledge you need to know about roots. So the square root of a number is a number which multiplied by itself gives the original. And again, in words, maybe it's not really clear, but you're trying to find this number that when you, the square root of 4 is 2, because 2 times 2 is 4. All right, so this is what I'm saying in symbols. If I want to find the square root of b, that's going to be a, because if I square a, if I multiply by a by itself, I get b, which is inside that square root. So this is the opposite of squaring something. So the opposite of squaring a is taking the square root of b. All right, so when you're first doing square roots, it is just a little bit of guess and check, but generally you just want to start with the smaller numbers and kind of work up. So if I'm trying to find the square root of 4, what number times itself is 4? So again, you could start with a guess like 1. Well, 1 times 1 is 1, and that's not 4. Your next number you would try is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And that tells me that 2 is the square root of 4, because 2 copies of 2 gives me 4, which is in that square root. It's just one thing when you're doing square roots, just always make sure that you're double checking that whatever number you put on the right that it's equal to, if you square that number, you get the thing that's in the square root. Square root of 16, and the next number you could try is 3, but 3 times 3 is 9, so that's not 16. 4 times 4 is 16, so that's the square root, because it's the number multiplied by itself to give 16. And 0, what times itself gives you 0? That's going to be 0. And just to double check that you're right, you take this answer, multiply it by itself, and you should get what's in the inside, and that's true. All right, 0 times 0 is 0. All right, so real quick, try this one. You're going to find the square root of 36. All right, and I'll tell you the answer in 3, 2, 1. The answer is 6. Again, when you're first doing roots, just make sure you double check that 6 times 6 is 36. If I square this number, I should get that number. All right, so you've definitely seen square roots before, all right, but there's also higher roots. All right, so it's the same thing. You can pretty much put any number, whole number here that represents a higher root. When you write the square root, technically, that's what you're doing. There's 2 copies of a number, but we just write it without the 2. But you can put bigger numbers, but that number there just tells you how many copies of the answer you need to give you the number on the inside. So if I find the cube root of a, then I need 3 copies of the answer multiplied together to give me a. If I want to find the 4th root of c, I need 4 copies of the answer to give me c that's on the inside of the root. So really that number there just tells you how many copies you're multiplying by of the answer to get what you started. All right, so here's some examples. All right, the cube root of 27, you could also say the 3rd root of 27. All right, we're looking for a number that you multiply by itself 3 times. All right, so again, when you're doing these higher roots, it's just better to start off with the smaller numbers. You can do a little bit of guess and check until you get this kind of second nature. All right, so you can try out 2 first. 3 copies of 2 is 8, so that's not the answer. Next, you would try 3. 3 copies of 3 is 27, so that tells me that is the answer, 3. All right. If I cube 3, I get 27, so doing in reverse, the cube root of 27 is 3. All right, the next one, we're looking for the 4th root, so we're looking for 4 copies of the same number. All right, so we could start off with 2. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 ends up being 16. So this answer is 2. All right, so yeah, at the beginning, you might not instantly know what the answer is. So you can just try something. In this case, the first time we try 2 ends up being the right answer. Last one, looking for the 8th root of 1. So we need 8 copies of the same number multiplied together to give you 1. Well, all right, if I just do a bunch of 1s, I think that's 8 of them. All right, they all multiply together to give me 1. So the 8th root of 1 is 1. Any root of 1 is 1. But you can see by definition, technically I need to show that 8 copies of the same number gives me that, well, what's in the root there. All right, so here's one for you to try and find the cube root of 125. I'll tell you the answer in 3, 2, 1. The answer is 5. All right, so the cube root of 125 is 5 because 5 times 5 times 5, again, because it's the cube root, I have 3 copies of 5, and if I were to multiply all those out, I get 125. So that's the way you can check your answer. All right, so now go practice finding roots. The square root is going to be the most important for what we do in class, but the other roots come up as well. So just be comfortable with using all the different roots no matter what the number is.